back to order. And Mr. Colling, maybe you can explain just where we recessed it and what the process will be from here.
Mr. President and Commissioners, at the previous meeting of the Board of Equalization, you as a board confirmed the assessment rolls and the assessment list for all properties within the city of Dickinson except for 4, and those properties are listed on your agenda. The values, the assessor's values for all other properties have been confirmed, so it is just these 4 that you would need to take action on tonight. You will need to take action on each of these matters individually with a motion to either confirm or to change the assessor's value, and then a separate motion at the end to confirm the assessment roll as it has been amended, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Colling. And was this meeting properly noticed for 3:30 for today, Monday, May 19th?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Okay, well then, Mr. Hirschfeld, we'll turn it over to you. You have 4 properties listed here, and we'll let you take us through each of the properties in the order you would like to.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. We'll start off with Mr. Baseflug's property, Baseflug Trailers. They're located at 1300 East Villard and 1430 and 1470 East Villard. These properties were valued at $713,400 and $437,900 respectively. I did go out to the property, sat down with Mr. Baseflug, and showed him how the property was valued. He'd noticed that there were some items that had been updated since the last valuation, and that there was a possibility that his future valuations could go higher. And when he realized how the process was done, the estate that the properties were in that we had them valued at, he withdrew his concerns and is no longer contesting those values.
Okay, so, thank you.
Also went and visited Mr. Rice, James and Mary Rice's property. It's located at 721 4th Avenue. It was valued at $121,300. Upon inspection, he'd underestimated what he thought the size of the first floor was. That's a 1.5-story building, so it ended up being just over 1,300 square feet, and had been very well taken care of. The house, Mr. Rice lives in the house adjacent to this, and then the one right next door to him on the other side was a 1,000 square foot house that sold for $172,000. He had mistakenly thought it sold for around $150,000. We pulled some other comparables similar to this property here. Those properties ranged in value from about $140,000 to $170,000. And upon showing him that data, he was kind of surprised that the market was that strong in Dickinson yet, and he had also withdrawn his request. I'll move to 41 First Avenue West, a downtown property owned by Vince Fissick. After visiting with Mr. Fissick in that property, we could make an adjustment. We had the property listed in above average condition. Could actually be considered in below average condition. Making that change would bring the valuation on our system down to $150,100. I'd also reviewed that with the market and the downtown properties, and don't know how much time you want to spend on those or if you'd looked at that, but that $150,000 falls in with the median value of what the downtown property sold for over the last 2 years. So found good support in the market for that $150,000 valuation. The 4th property that was brought to us was Mr. Friedrich, a Legend Real Estate. He owns a condo unit at 2478 Sim Street. He had been to my office. We'd gone over his listing, and at that time he did not notice that that building had been valued as a steel building. It's metal on frame. After going out and reviewing that property, I did notice that error and corrected not only his but also the other 3 units in that building. That would have been Unit A, that's owned by Cole and Derek Brew, and Units B and C owned by Martin LLC. Those valuations dropped from $397,100 down to a range of $301,900 to $318,100. depending on amenities such as additional bathroom fixtures or a little larger office space.
Okay. So I would gather by the absence of Mr. Fitzik and Mr. Fidrich that they're accepting these values.
Mr. Fisick said he would be out of town today and couldn't make the meeting, but he was content with that value of $150,100 this year, and is looking forward to see what the valuation is following the completion of the commercial revaluation. Mr. Frederick thought the value was still, well, he'd paid $210,000 for his property. He thought we were a little high, but when I went over the data for metal buildings, warehouses, shop buildings in Norton and Dickinson here, and we also looked at a rough estimate based off the cost approach of the 2 leased units in there. Those properties could most likely end up around $330,000 to $370,000 following this revaluation themselves. So I think he's content with that valuation that we have, that $302,700 for this year, and also looking forward to completion of the revaluation.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for the assessor? Hearing none, Mr. Colling, if we choose to accept these, what would the appropriate motion be?
Mr. President, I believe Mr. Hirschfeld has some suggested language for you, which I will let him give to you. You will need to take a separate vote on each of the 4 items on this, but
It's a separate vote on each one?
on each of the 4.
Oh, okay.
Mr. President, Commissioners, the motion to accept the original opinion of value would be I move to accept the assessor's opinion of value for the properties located at. That would be 721 4th Avenue West, owned by James and Mary Rice. And then the base Flukes properties at 1300 East Villard and 1430 to 1470 East Villard. We would use that motion for those. The other properties, we would use a motion to change my valuation, my original valuation, from the $397,100 to the corrected valuation that I have in your handout, and I can give you those if you need them.
Okay, well, let's start with item D then. Item C and D, there is no change. So the proper motion then for item D is to accept the assessor's original valuation.
I would make that motion for item D, the 1300 East Villard and 1430, 1470 East Villard.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson? Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Then item C is similar to item D. Would there be the same motion for the 721 4th Avenue West property?
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, then we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. So the next property we'll take is the 41 First Avenue West property. And Mr. Hirschfeld, in that motion, we would accept the new value. So we have to give the numbers there.
Yes, that would be a change from $175,100, a decrease to $150,100.
Would there be such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. So we'll go to item A, the 2478 Sims Street, units A through D. And I imagine we have to do like 4 separate motions here.
I believe that's correct, Mr.
Right.
President.
So let's start with Unit A then.
Unit A would be a decrease from $397,100 to $301,900.
Would there be such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a-
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson? Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So Unit B.
Unit B would be a decrease also from $397,100 to $305,300.
Okay. Would there be such a motion?
I'll
So
make,
moved.
second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. So items, Unit C.
Unit C would be a decrease from $397,100 to $318,100.
Okay, would there be such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. And then Unit D.
Unit D would be a decrease from $397,100 to $302,700.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. I believe there is no other action to be taken.
Mr. President, we will need one additional motion to confirm the assessment roll as amended and submit the assessment roll to the County Board of Equalization.
Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson? Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Any other items, Mr. Colling? Then the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have the motion and the second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're adjourned.